Hello my friends, it's here, it's Thursday, it's 4 p.m, at least where I'm at, and the weekend's coming. You know, every single week I have the same message for you, and that is that the weekend is coming, which is a great message to give, right? So, today I want to talk to you again about Scully. I know that last time I said that it's probably the last stream about Scully, that I will try to finish it during my Friday, my Innovation Friday, but that didn't work as planned. I actually got stuck on a feature that I figured out does not exist, but more on that a bit later. I'm gonna get to that. You see that my Visual Studio Code is open. I'm all ready to go in and work on that. But first of all, I want to show you something. I want to show you something that is on content website. If you go to developer plan, and that's something I want to start with today, because if you go on this page, and there is a bingo right in the middle of the page, so you can just click on any three items that are either in the row or in the column, and see what happens when you finish these three. I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna let you do that. I'm gonna send the link in the chat window so that you don't have to type it in. But try to get a bingo, and you'll see what's gonna happen. This is really awesome, and it's in production, so a nice Easter egg. And by the way, there is also a code block here that has some JavaScript fun stuff. It's fun if you know about it. It isn't fun if you need to find out about these things for the first time and you're wondering why your code doesn't work. So take a look at those. I'm sure you're gonna like them. So that's for the intro today. Now, I said that I was working on Scully, and that I stumbled upon some stuff that Scully apparently doesn't do. And now I'm gonna show you what my confusion is about, right? So the whole website that you see on the left, I was able, before I did not have any Angular experience at all. So I was able to build the whole Angular site just like that. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that hard. It took me a few days to get familiar with all the modules and all the components and how they all kind of fit together. There's an article coming about that, so if you're new to Angular, don't worry, I'll get you covered. Just watch my Twitter. I'm gonna be sending a message there when I publish that, so it's twitter.com/Underboss. And what I wanted to say is that I was able to get an Angular site up and running. Now, I didn't know what was the connotation between Angular and Scully, right? Because if you want to build a website on Gatsby, it doesn't work that you build the site with simple React and then you just plug in Gatsby and everything works. It just doesn't work like that, right? The front-end framework, Gatsby, Next.js, or if you go to Vue, it could be a GridSum or a Nuxt. It just doesn't work in a way that you build a website with that platform and then you plug in something and everything just magically works, right? That's the difference with Scully, right? So the whole website I built as an Angular website. So everything you see here, this is plain Angular. If I do ng build, it builds the whole website as an Angular website. It all kind of works as an SPA, yeah. So that's all nice and fine. If you look at some of my components, so that you know what I'm talking about, right? Or let's take a look at full article. So full article is a page component, right? Page component that actually displays one article. It represents one page based on a slug. You see there is some HTML, there is some code behind, that gets the data, and you see that the component actually gets the data using the JavaScript SDK. So this is the way how the website gets data from the content repository. Yeah, you see here I'm getting item author based on codename author. Here I'm getting another type of data, site metadata, and adding those into properties that are existing here on this component, right? So this is quite straightforward, I think. when you figure out how that works. And okay, the site was now built. Now let's say ng-serve. This should spin up an HTTP server that will serve the website. It's gonna take a second. So you see, this is quite straightforward. Every component has its own routing, right? The routing happens on the app routing module, and there are a bunch of routes defined. The first of them is obviously for home components. This is the main home page. Then there are categories, there are tags, there are articles, and then there is a fallback for just a simple slug that goes to content page component. So these are all the pages that I need for my Gatsby, or not Gatsby, but let's sort of a Lumen template. Yeah, we call that template Lumen, or that starter. All right, so now my website is running on localhost 4200. So if I open a new browser here and go to localhost 4200, you see the website is up and running. If you look at the developer tools, when we go to About Me page, for example, you'll see that the page is a simple SPA. So it's doing here is doing a content query. You see the request URL is deliver content AI blah 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 with the project ID. So this is getting data on the fly. Yeah, whenever I go to another page, contact, for example, again it does some requests to the content and gets the data and displays it. So a simple SPA. Now the real magic comes when you plug Scully in. So I did that only by installing a bunch of components here, like I was explaining last time. So here are the Scully init, Scully IO, nglib, and Scully. And whenever you have these things available here, without any other stuff, you know, you can just run ng, or not ng, but Scully. I think I'm doing npm run Scully. And what Scully is gonna do, it's gonna go through the routes that you have in your app, and it's actually gonna spin up a new browser, and it's gonna visit those pages. So that's a totally different concept than what we are used to from Gatsby or Next or Gridsome and others. So this really spins out a new browser, accesses those pages, and then stores the HTML. Very, very interesting concept. Now, in order to do that properly, you need to have a Scully starter or Scully config, right? You need to tell Scully what are the URLs. Because if you just build your app, your single page application can have an infinite combinations of pages, right? So you need to define all the routes. The routes are defined here in the Scully config. Now you see here that there are a bunch of stuff like project root, output directory. So this is important when you're building that stuff. But here you define the routes. Now important thing is that the route definition, so that's what you see here, yeah, the /: and slug, that has to be one-on-one same with the routes that you have defined in your Angular app. So if you look at the app routing module, you'll see that there is a path : slug, and to that I have here in the Scully config, okay, / is here as a prefix, and then the same route definition. Yeah, this is very important. Now if you make a typo here, it's not going to work. The Scully is not going to find those routes, and you're going to be wondering why your website isn't working. Yeah, so just make sure that this is working. And then there are multiple types how you want to get your data for your website. You see, I'm using JSON, and I'm calling a URL to get the data from a remote endpoint. Now, 95% of all the articles that are published online, they always do the same thing, and they always work with the markdown files. They have a blog folder here and so on. I don't think that's really a very useful example, because you want to have your content stored somewhere else than the code. And I'm a developer. I know that it's possible to store all their blog posts in Markdown on GitHub or elsewhere. I just don't think it's the best idea. If you can store all of your content in a headless CMS that is cloud-based, you don't have to do anything. You just need to provide the project ID. which is here. And you can store the content there. You can have all the content editing features and you don't have to pay for anything. Why would you do that? Why would you do that with Markdown files? Like, maybe I'm not that big fan of Git, or I'm not in love with Git, but that just seems like much better option. So if you're in a situation where you don't have Markdown files, you can here just use the type JSON and as the slug, right? So the slug is the parameter here. The slug is then gathered from the URL. Now this URL is getting data from the headless CMS, and obviously the response has a lot of parameters. It doesn't, so sometimes you see just the property elements something, but sometimes it just doesn't work like that because the response is much more complicated. In those cases, you can adjust the response by using the result handler. You see there is a raw here as a property that contains the response. So this could be the raw response or response variable if you prefer. Now I'm going into items and I'm filtering for all the elements that don't have a root URL. The reason for that is I don't need the home URL in the list of Scully URLs. Now I don't really remember the reason for that, but just trust me that it works like this. Otherwise there were duplicates. But the important part is that here you can post-process the response so that Scully config gets only the property that it wants. So here you define the property. It's, in my case, it's elements slug value, and it kind of all works together. So Scully will then create an array of all the routes that it needs to visit, right? This is something that you need to do because it works in a way that your Angular application is built, then Scully gets all the URLs and then visits all of the URLs and stores the HTML. So it's kind of a post-processing stuff. So this needs to be intact with your content. The same goes for everything else, right? The categories and tags, all the slugs here, articles, yeah. These requests, they only get whatever we need for the route. So here I'm using the URL slug of every article. So I'm accessing the response from the CMS. I'm getting all the items because I filtered them here in the URL. You see the system type is article, and getting the value from that. So this is the way how I create the routes. Now, when you do npm run Scully here, you will see that Scully will first tell me, hey, I'm loading the config, and then it's going to show me what are the URLs that it's processing, right? So here you see started service in background. Okay. And now it's going to be looking for the routes. You see creating route list. And here we go. So categories / Gatsby, categories / typography, tags, Gatsby, design, handwriting, and so on. So it's going through all the pages. And you see every page. Okay, let's go back here. You see every page that it found, every route that it found was visited and rendered into file .dist static articles, blah, blah, blah. So this is the way how Scully works. Now, when we do npm run Scully serve, Scully should run a server that we can use to browse the site, right? Here we go, 1668. So it should be the same one, and it should work just like that, yeah. You see that this works. Everything is there. This is here, typefaces. If we go back home, we're home. So everything kind of works. But let's take a look at what was really generated so that we know what we need to deploy, right? So this is a folder that I have in Explorer, and under dist and static, we should see the whole website, right? If we serve this website, now that's what I wanted to show you, right? I configured my local IIS to serve this site. It's called Gatsby because I used to do the same with Gatsby, but you see it's under Scully starter content dist static. So this is this folder. Yeah, it's already running. So what I can do instead of visit the site on the Scully server, I can just type in localhost and I will see the same thing. This is the static site already generated. And you see this is all working well. All articles are here. Oops, I left one test case here, but that's fine. We can remove it later. But you see everything is intact here. Now, the problem with Scully is that when the pages or when the website is generated like this, the default or the default way how this website is working is an SPA. So by default, this is a simple Angular app. Yeah. When you look at the About Me, for example, you'll see that the website is still doing these requests. So it's doing a request for article, for menu item, pretty much anything that you're doing on the website. So this is not a static site at all. This is just a single SPA, like Scully was never there. The only thing you can do here, if you're on localhost, I'm just gonna clear these things, and I'm just gonna disable JavaScript, right? So disabling JavaScript. Now I'm on a truly static site. So if I go to About Me, you see it really goes to the route About Me, and this is the page right here. If I go to Contact, if I go to Articles, open an article, you'll see that there are some requests here, but only for those static assets. So /About Me, CSS files, these could probably be handled by caching, but there are no requests to my remote content storage. Yeah, there is no content AI, so it all works locally, or not locally, but statically generated. So what I want to do today is I want to take a look. So I'm going to enable JavaScript back. I want to take a look how to disable this automatically. So Scully people claim that there is a plugin to do that. So I want to see how that works. And then I want to deploy it to Netlify or any other platform that would work. So that's a case for today. So let's go back here to localhost and let's take a look. So Scully disable JavaScript. Here we go. So there is a Scully disable Angular plugin. Let's see if that's what I'm looking for. Scully plugin disable Angular. Okay, let's take a look at that then. Okay, 190 weekly downloads. That could be the thing that I'm looking for. So this post-render plugin for Scully removes the static assets that bootstrap the Angular application. You can also remove the dynamic transfer state from the HTML. If you are only using Angular to build a static informational website with little extra functionality, it could be overkill to still use Angular on the front end. Yes. It will speed up your loading times on mobile scores even more. Okay, so that sounds like something I want to do. Let's try this then. So I'm just going to stop this and install the plugin. Is there any configuration related? Okay, here we go. Import and add the plugin to the default post renderers to execute it on all rendered pages, or use the post renderers on a route configuration to execute it for a specific route. Now I want to render on all rendered pages. So where do we put this? Exports config. So it's in a config. The current implementation of Scully is that if you provide a post renderers option on the route level, it will ignore the configuration of the default post renderers. Okay. So this seems like this is a Scully config. So I assume that this is what I'm looking for. Let's take a look. So Scully config. Disable Angular, require that plugin. Post renderers are disable Angular, and we want to add that below the project root. Okay, for all routes. All right. So let's see if this is going to work. So I'm just going to run ng, or I don't have to do ng build, maybe. Or but let's run it for just to be sure. just to be sure. And is this really something? Now build your app with the stats JSON flag enabled, as the plugin needs to know which assets have been built for your app. Then just run the Scully command. Okay. So stop this. And npm run build, production build. Okay. And then run Scully. Okay, we can also remove the state. Let's add that into the config too. Set plugin config. Where is this coming from? Oh, this is coming from Scully. Okay. Okay, maybe I should have done this before I started the build. Okay, let's do it again. Let's do that again, and we'll see. So then I just need to do npm run Scully once this is compiled. So this is something that I'm very used to from Gatsby. When you're looking for something, you just need to open npm or Google, search for the plugin that you're looking for, and it's there. And the only thing you need to do is just install it and add one line into the config, and it all kind of works. So this is nice. Let's see. Chunk asset optimization. Still, it seems like disabling Angular is not what I really want. Okay, here we go. npm run Scully. But here I don't have any other option, right? Because I don't want the Angular to be getting the data from my remote storage. So I have to disable it. But other frameworks like React with Gatsby, Next, and GreatSum or Next, they actually use the power of client-side JavaScript to make the browsing nicer. Like if you go from an index page to an about page or to an article page, it just makes the transitions nice, and it only takes the data using the service worker. So it's still using the pre-generated data. With Angular and Scully, it doesn't seem like that's the case. So that's why we are disabling Angular, but maybe if Angular was used better in this case, it'd be nicer. Okay, so now the page is rebuilt. Let's see. I'm just gonna open the tools here. The JavaScript is enabled here, so I'm just gonna do a complete refresh of the page. Okay. And now let's go to About Me, for example. And nice, it's not doing any calls here. So Angular is really disabled here. If we go back to articles and open an article, the same seems to happen. Nice. Okay, so now this is fine. This is fine because you see the sizes here, 4.6 kilobytes for the page, but nothing else. So that was, okay, 16 kilobytes for the font. But otherwise, the browsing is quite fast. And we are not downloading any big assets here. So this is cool. Okay, so this worked nicely, and I'm just gonna keep it in there because I want the website to be static. I want that to be pre-generated. So let me just remove this from the full article component, because that was something that I was testing, right? Ooh, one other thing that I totally forgot. Okay, let's remove this and let's remove this test. One thing that I completely forgot about, and that you will, I'm 100% sure that you will stumble upon that if you're working with Scully. I'm just gonna run the build again. And I'm just gonna explain that in the meantime. So the problem is, in my case, or at least in my case, the problem was that when we look at the app routing, here you see that there is, let's look at articles, right? So there is a articles/slug route, and whatever that fits that route goes into the full article component. So that means, let's say we have a /articles/slug1. Then we have /articles/slug2. Now, if you open the first URL, it's going to show you the full article component. It's going to show you the article. Everything will be nice. You're going to read it. You're going to finish it. All good. But then at the end of the article, if there is a link for /articles/slug -2, then Angular will not render the page. It will stay on the same component because it will think that the slug, that the URL will go to the same component. So it will stay in that component and it will not do anything, right? That's usually not what you want. And this was a bit of a surprise to me. I found out about this completely by accident because on this page, I was trying to switch from about to, I can show you that. So I was trying to switch from about page to contact, and now it works. But before it wasn't working. It wasn't working on the static side too, or because it wasn't working on the statically generated side because it was running in Angular right before we disabled that. But when you generated the site, it was working because every page was generated by Scully separately. The way how I resolved this was by adding a little bit of a code here that says, so I had to add the router here, and there is on init there is a little code that ensures that whenever there is an event route, there is an event on the router that is navigation end. So that means whenever navigation occurs, we're subscribing to that event. And if we're staying on the same component, we are going to reload the data, right? It's as simple as that. So whenever there's a navigation, you're still on this component, you reload the data. Now that obviously works because whenever you're going through the load data method again, it will, the article is gathered from using this code, and it uses this route snapshot params slug. So this slug will be current when you reload. Yeah. So this is a very important piece of code that you will need on all your components in case you are or the visitor is able to go from one instance of that page to another. Now this is something that I haven't stumbled upon on in any other static site generator. Yeah. So watch for this, it needs to be there. Right, in the meantime, we have the build finished. Let me run Scully again. So now we're generating the routes and the pages, right? I just want to verify one last time that everything works and it's okay. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna send this to GitHub, and I'm just gonna try to deploy it to Netlify. Now I'm not sure if I have it in my source tree, so if this is already, but I think it is. Yeah, I think I created a repository for this project last week. So let's see. Okay, rendering routes. Okay, let's see. I think this is on my GitHub. That would be Scully starter content Lumen. Here we go. Lumen starter on Scully. That's what I'm looking for. And I just want to check. Yeah, the dist folder is not here, which is nice. I don't want to include the generated pages, so this is cool. So everything should be in place here. Now I'm just gonna check if this works. So this these pages were generated. That means this page should now be working. And there should not be the test link here. Okay, so this seems to be fine. Handwriting, about me, contact, everything works. All right. So now what I want to do is I actually want to take, this is modified, this is fine. So now I want to push all these things in. So Scully log, I assume this could be removed but config definitely needs to be there. And this is the component that was changed. All right, so this thing adds or add plugin that disables Angular for pre-generated pages. Okay, I'm gonna commit that and push that. Obviously, the commit message does not really describe every single thing that this commit does, which is a mistake on my part. But yeah, I hope you will forgive me for that. And here we go. Let's see. So 22 seconds ago, source. Perfect. Now what I want to do is I want to take this and put it to Netlify. So let's go into Netlify and log in. Now I'm just going to put that away for a second. And I'm going to create here a new site from Git, right? We're going to use GitHub. I'm just going to add the GitHub here. I'm just going to put there the repo that I want. Now just give me a second. So this is Scully. And I have to allow that on GitHub. So just give me a second. I'm going to move that back here in a moment. Okay, now we should be almost finished here. Oh, I totally forgot to play some music for you guys. Okay, now let's get back here. And I'm just gonna turn the music on for a second. All right, here we go. So, we're looking for Scully starter content Lumen. And let's see what we want to do. So the branch to deploy is definitely main. Build command is just gonna be, let's see this, check build, out build, make all, okay. So npm run build. I assume we're gonna run the same as here. So npm run build this command. We could probably add that into the package .json as a build command, but this works well. Now the folder is defined in the content in the Scully config, right? So the output directory is dist/static. So dist/public. Okay, let's see. Let's see if this is gonna work. I'm just gonna switch this because I have the grid sum starter. I have under much nicer URL. Let's see what that is. So that is grid sum starter content lumen.netlify.app. So I want to do the same here. So change site name to Scully starter content lumen. That sounds much better. Okay, cool. Now let's take a look at the build. Oh, where do I see the build? Maybe here? Here we go. Site deploying process. Building. Okay, show me what's going on. Ooh, but that's not enough. We actually need to build this using Scully as well. So we're gonna, in the end, we're gonna need to pipe that anyway. So let's see. Let's see. Where are my scripts here? Here it is. So I'm just gonna add here Netlify build, which is going to be ng build, production build stats JSON, and So how do we pipe these things? I know that we were using the same on grid sum, but I don't know how we pipe these. Okay, let's give me a second. So run npm script pipe. Oh, here we go. Just a single. How do you call this, by the way? Single pipe? I guess pipe is the right word for that. Yeah, so we just pipe it like this. It seems. And we're gonna do Scully. I guess just Scully. Because we're doing npm run Scully, right? Yeah. So just Scully, it seems. Let's just save that and let's try to run this. npm run Netlify build. Okay, unknown option prod. That's not good. But that should work, right? npm, okay, what if you do npm run build and then do npm run Scully? Is this gonna be any better? Problem here. Problem starting background servers. Okay. Okay, this does not exist. Okay, that's fine. That's just because I didn't run Scully there. So this is expected. Let me see what we can do here. So Netlify build command pipe. Oh, where was that? Okay, here they are using just 2 ampersands. So I'm just gonna do the same here. npm run Scully. Let's see if that works. So let's try to do it again. Deploys, trigger deploy, let's go. And I'm just gonna try to do the same here. So npm run build and npm run Scully so that we keep the scripts in place. Okay, something is happening here. Okay, seems to work. Compiling here as well as here. Now the build takes a bit long, you know, compared to React or Vue. So I'm using, you know, my personal site is built with Next.js and that build takes just a bunch of seconds. Here we started 4:38:15. It's already over a minute. Okay, this is already running Scully, so this seems to work. So this might be, you know, a bit nicer way to have Netlify build defined here than to define it in Netlify. But let's see. So here we're already rendering into files. Here we are still stuck on compiling Scully IO and glib. Come on. Okay, here we are already finished. So the website was built. So this script seems to be working. Oh, here we are running Scully 2. Now in the meantime, I'm just gonna commit this change. So just this one. And I can discard Scully log. Add Netlify build script 2. Okay. Let's just push that. Okay, this looks good. But the directory dist/public does not exist. Dist. Okay, maybe I need to include the dot and /. Let's see. So let's edit this. So Netlify publish directory subdirectory. Let's take a look. Base directory, okay. Oh, here it is. Directory to change before starting a build. This is where we look for packages. Now this is fine. This is okay. I just want the publish directory to be different. No, not seeing here. No, not seeing here as well. Publish directory. So let's try subdirectory directly. Publish directory direction. Okay, this is what I'm experiencing here. Has something like frontend /build. If you were to clone a new copy of your project, process like that, okay. npm install, stop in there. If you run it in local, no, that's still not answering my question. Okay, let's see again here. Let's look in the documentation. So publish directory for single page apps is often called dist, but varies by framework and build tool. Oh, here we go. Okay, so that should be there. So docs/viewPressDist. So that should be fine. It should be dist/static. Exactly as I have in my Scully config. /dist/static. And if we look locally, see, locally it's /dist/static. So that should be there. Let's try it once again. Oh, and I'm just gonna change this npm run Netlify build. So let's trigger it. And let's take a look at the last failed build. So these things were rendered into file dist static. That's fine. Oh, this was dist public. Okay, so that was my mistake. So we're looking at dist/static and I had dist/public. So just a little typo there. Now the deploy should be fine because I hope I did the right thing now. Yeah, dist/static. So we should be fine now. Let's take a look at the deploy here. Installing npm modules. Now the builds are significantly slower than for other platforms. You see, look at this one, for example. How long did it take? So 4:41:24 was the start. 4:44:29 was finished. So in 3 minutes and 3 seconds. Now, you get 103 minutes from Netlify, right? So if you did one build per day, that's still fine per month if you have just one website there. But still, you know, if you compare it to other frameworks and other static site generators, this is way slower. Maybe the problem is that it always builds the app. That seems to take long. The Scully isn't that bad, but the fact that Scully actually runs the site and then you know, strips the HTML from an existing site, maybe that's a problem that makes it slower. So here we go. We started the build 4:46, so we should be, you know, switching into Scully in a few seconds, and hopefully the site will build. Of course, you can also change the out directory. You know, if you don't like dist static, just change it to whatever you want, like /public or whatever you want. One thing that I couldn't, you know, figure out was how to use. So the project ID here is hard coded in the file, right? I tried to get it from the environments. So you see, there is an environments file and environments variables, where there is the delivery project ID, nothing else, yeah? And that's public in my case. Both of these files are the same. So I don't really care. But I tried to, you know, import this this file or this variable in here in the config, but it wasn't working. It was always throwing in errors. That's why I gave up and just hard-coded it here. So if you're facing similar issue, that's what I ended up doing. Even though it should be working, it wasn't working for me. Cool. So here we go. Starting to deploy site from dist/static, and the site is now live. Perfect. Let's take a look. So Scully started. Okay, now I want to look at the not preview, but I want to see the page on its normal URL. So here we go. Scully starter content Lumen. How do I get to that site directly? I don't. Okay, I'm just gonna, oh, here it is. Here is the link, a nice link. So Scully Starter Content Lumen, you can all get in there. I'm just gonna send the link to the chat. Just take a look at how that website looks like, and check if we are actually accessing any remote resources, but it should be working without them. So you see, we're only looking for fonts and not accessing any remote data. So it seems to be working nicely. All articles, contact. Yep, everything seems to be working. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to set up a webhook so that the website is built automatically when I do a content change. So in order to do that, I'm just going to jump into the content app. I'm just going to switch to a different project. So give me a second. Oops, and I need to sign in again. Okay, now in the meantime, I'm just going to jump in here, build and deploy. I think it's here, deploy notifications. Is that it? I always forget about where the webhooks are supposed to go. Deploy contacts, build hooks, here it is. So we want to add a build hook. Let's call that Cantico content, and branch to build is main. So save that. And this URL, just gonna copy that. Just give me a sec. I'm just gonna jump in here. So this is the GridSum Lumen. I mean, it's in the same project for GridSum Starter as well as the Scully Starter. So I'm just gonna go into project settings and I'm gonna add here a webhook. There is no webhook here. Okay, so this is gonna be Scully Starter on Netlify. I'm just gonna add that here. And we want to trigger that when there is a publish or unpublish event. We don't care about taxonomies. So just like that, go save it. Cool. Now when we go back here, we can take a look at the menu item, for example, or on the contact page. Now on the contact page, there is no content, there's just test there, right? So we can take a look. So content page, there is a contact here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new version of that. The description is going to be, if you feel like it, send me a message on Twitter. I'm just gonna put here Cantico content. I hope that this is the handle. We're gonna see in a moment. Send us a message on Twitter. Okay, now let's publish this. And we should see the website built automatically in a moment. So this is published and we should see in our, okay, 3 minutes and 12 seconds. So we should see the webhook trigger a build in a moment here. And we should see the content in about 5 minutes on the live side. Let's try this again. Okay, here we go. So deploy triggered by hook Cantico content. So the webhook arrived. Now it's building the whole site again. So in a moment we should see the new content here. By the way, I don't have a favicon here. I don't know how that slipped my attention, but there should be a favicon here. I'm not sure if is this causing a 404 or do I not have it in the code? Maybe I forgot to add it to the code as well. Oh no, there is a favicon icon. Okay, so now that means I have to add one there. So I'm just gonna do it later. That's not important right now, but just don't forget that you need to have these assets physically in the website as well. I don't think that that's my case. See, there are just fonts here, but no favicon here. So I'm just gonna have to fix that later. Okay, now we're looking at this build. Okay, now this is already running Scully. So running all the routes. And we are live. Nice. So now when we go back here and go to contact, if you feel like it, send us a message on Twitter. Let's see if that handle works. That works. Nice. Perfect. So this is Scully's site already deployed. Now the next step, what I'm gonna have to do is look at the repository and kind of make it a bit nicer. So there is this ugly README. So I have to fix this, but I have to add the favicon here. But otherwise, this is nice. I'm quite happy with how this turned out. So Netlify build, we have all the scripts in place. Everything is set up correctly. So looks nice. Yeah, and that's how Scully works. So quite interesting. It has a different approach than normal static site generators. It's using a different way of building the site. The one thing that I was also, banging my head against the wall for was that sometimes, or actually on all the articles that I read, you always saw things like, or one component. Let's put that here. One component that looked like. No, let me just put it here. That looked like this: Scully-content. And it was just sitting there, yeah? I had no idea what this was, so I watched a few streams about Scully, and I couldn't find any information about this in any of the articles, because they were just, magically adding that there, and I didn't understand, like, how would Scully know what kind of content to insert here? How would Scully know what kind of markup I want here? In the end, I found out from one of the streams that had only like 130 views, so that was really lucky that I found it. So I found out that this is only for cases when you are using blogs in markdown format. So if you are doing that, if you are following what other blog posts are showing, adding the markdown files in a blog folder and having it in here in the same code base, in that case, the Scully content will take the content of the blog post. So that's in a front matter. Yeah, usually you're using front matter for this. So it's taking only the content of the article and it's adding that content in here. So the Scully content component, as far as I learned, was only introduced here so that you don't have to do, or you don't have to jump through any other loops if you want to use front matter and markdown. However, I think that the name of the component is very misleading and very confusing. This is the way how they did it. So if you don't use Markdown, if you don't want to use that you're using remotely downloaded data for the website, just feel free to omit this completely and use only the Angular implementation. Don't use the Scully content at all. It's gonna work. You see that this website is not using any Scully content and works nicely. Yeah, you can go to About Me, to articles, everything works nicely. So that was just one thing that took me half a day to figure out that you don't need. Right. Otherwise, the codebase is completely public, so feel free to take a look. It's underbus/Scully starter. I'm just gonna send that link into the chat as well. So it's on that URL. The Netlify URL is there as well, so feel free to take a look at the website. It should behave the same way as the GradeSum one. It uses the same content, so everything should be all right here. If you have any suggestions, just feel free to open a pull request or add an issue in there. I'm not an Angular developer, I'm not a Scully expert, so I'm just trying it out to see how it actually compares to other static site generators. And this is the result. It took me, 3-4 streams, so, and plus 1 day, because I didn't know anything about Angular before. So it wasn't that bad. I was expecting this to be a bit worse. Because wherever you look, you see that the Angular has the steep learning curve. So I have to say it wasn't that bad. As I said, I've identified a few key points that would be nice for you, the beginners, to know. I'm gonna be composing an article, so make sure to follow my Twitter. It's twitter.com/underbus. I'll market everything there. Whenever I publish any blog post, it's there as well. So this is the best place to watch for any new content. Otherwise, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope I gave you a nice overview into Scully and how that works. And I'll see you next time. I'll see you next Thursday. I'm actually thinking about pushing the time of the stream a bit, maybe to a little later hours. So let me know if you think that's a good idea. And I'll see you next time on Thursday, and we're probably going to be looking at Next.js version 10. So they just announced a new version. My personal website is built with Next.js, so I'm just going to be adjusting that. There are a few things that were improved, mainly regarding the routing and URLs. So we're going to be looking at those. So make sure to follow me here on YouTube as well. And I'll see you next time, next week with Next.js. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye.